forward to hopefully seeing very many of you in just a few more hours. In the spirit of Rosh Chodesh, I want you all to consider the following scenario. A bunch of Jews are dancing in a circle. This could be in any number of settings. It might be Friday night at shul, Simchat Torah, camp, celebrating some kind of festive life cycle event, really all kinds of settings. There's a circle of Jews dancing around, and one person is on the outside, or a couple people are on the outside. They don't want to dance for any number of reasons. Let's visualize for a moment what the dynamic looks like. What exactly is happening here? If I'm inside the circle, do I try to pull that person in to join everyone else? Should that person on the outside feel compelled to take part in the dancing? It's hard to say in a vacuum what exactly we should do, and obviously a lot depends on the specific circumstances. Certainly we always want to respect everyone's agency, but at any rate, we need to think about this general type of setting. The circle of Jews dancing and some people maybe on the outside really provides a helpful lens through which to consider the spirit of Chodesh Adar, the month of Adar, which we begin today. We learn from the Gemara the idea that Mishenichnas Adar Marbim B'Simcha. When Adar arrives, or from the time Adar arrives, we increase in joy. We are, it seems, commanded to feel a specific emotion, to be happy. That's strange and potentially difficult, and I suspect I'm not alone in finding it particularly difficult given the difficult events surrounding the war and the situation in Israel right now. But even in normal times, it's still troubling, because what if at any given moment you aren't happy? You simply can't feel happy. What if, God forbid, someone you love has just died, or you've lost your job, or you're clinically depressed? It can be hard, ultimately, given just the reality of the world around us, which is sometimes a sad place, to see the idea of having to be marbi b'simcha, having to increase our happiness, as anything but a toxically positive idea. We can't just decide to be happy. Clear. That said, I think understood properly, the call to be marbi b'simcha can be tremendously valid. We have to think more expansively. And if we do so, we can embrace the paradox between mandatory happiness and the objectively unhappy circumstances that sometimes characterize our lives in the world. We can say, yes, I'm sad, upset, annoyed, depressed, etc., and that's allowed. And then at the same time, we can also say, I'm going to gently try to be joyous about the month of Adar, and I'm going to be patient, and I'm going to forgive myself if that joy isn't always so easy. And the forgiveness is really a key point here. The Zohar teaches us that Yom Kippur, Yom Kippurim, should be read as, or could be read as Yom Kippurim, a day like Purim. On Yom Kippur, we forgive others, and we are forgiven by others and by God. And so too on Purim, we might want to invite ourselves to forgive ourselves for any unhappiness we might be feeling, given the various realities around us. And if the Zohar isn't so much your thing, one could also take a more technical approach. Strictly speaking, we're called upon to increase our joy, not to be joyous. Therefore, even an incremental bump in happiness is considered meaningful. Some people might call that pedantic or a silly textual read, but I think it's actually really beautiful. It gets to a powerful point that Adar gives us the opportunity to say that every second of joy, every fleeting moment of feeling good that we manage to add to our lives in commemoration of a miracle that happened a long time ago, that act of adding that joy has real spiritual weight. So back to our example, what do we do about the person outside the circle who doesn't want to dance? And to reiterate, consent is important. Definitely we have to read the situation, and it's not always the case that we should try too hard to draw that person in physically. But I do want to share some Torah on that point from Rabbi Nachman of Breslau, because he actually uses that very scenario as a metaphor for a spiritual point. And he talks about emotions. He says, sadness and sighing, they are predisposed, those emotions are predisposed to flee, figuratively, situations where happiness abounds. Aval, he says, but we have to chase after, pursue those emotions. We have to catch up to them and reintroduce those emotions into the joyous setting that they are running away from. In other words, we need to try, or we ought to try, to find ways to have our sad reality, potentially sad reality, dance with the happiness that might be around us, the happiness that Judaism or the Torah or God might be imposing on us. We owe that kindness and that outreach and that extensive approach to our emotional well-being to others, but we also owe it to ourselves. The work of rescuing ourselves from the consequences of our most negative emotions is brutally hard, to say the least. We can't expect to succeed overnight. We can't expect to succeed over the course of a month, and we can't necessarily even expect to ever feel like we've fully succeeded at marrying our negative emotions to a more positive outlook. But nonetheless, it's Rosh Chodesh Adar, the month of happiness is upon us, and we should welcome that opportunity to give that project our best shot. Shabbos, Chodesh Tov, looking forward to seeing you all very soon.